Mike Conroy is the director of tech ops at Rent-A-Center, and he's going to talk a little bit real quick about, not real quick, but he's going to talk a little bit about what we did for them, what their business problems were, what they were trying to address, and where they went from August of 2014 to July of 2015. Mike's going to come up now
okay.
and tell his story about what they were trying to accomplish and what they were trying to do and what this meant for Rent-A-Center and the business.
Okay.
Yeah.
So about a year ago, a little over a year ago, Rent-A-Center was faced with a challenge in that we had a large point of sale implementation that we had to deliver. It wasn't a question of, how long is it going to take to get it done? We were given a date and said, you will meet that. At the time, it was taking us, a couple of weeks to deploy a single store, because we had a one-to-one relationship between a store server and an actual physical location. And there was no way. We were given a date, at the end of this year that we had to have the infrastructure ready, and it was not going to happen. So a couple of the other people who I work with who are not here today, who had the relationship with Mobius, went to Mobius and said, hey, we heard good things about VMware and this vRealize stuff and automation and speed to market and all that good jazz will all help us get this done. So Mobius came in, stood up a proof of concept for vRealize, and did a demo to our executive team and said, hey, look, we can deploy 20 servers in 5 minutes, and we'll give you automated approval, and we'll give you cost structures and security and all of that, and it worked well. It worked so well that we actually, and for those of you who have been around for a while, know we actually got with VMware, signed an enterprise license agreement, got it all done, and then we got told, and while we were doing all this, we looked at how we were deploying the servers for the stores, said, okay, not only do we need automation, we need a better model for this. So we decided we're going to go with a stateless store environment, no data on the server itself, because all the server effectively is a place to host Java virtual machines. So we said, okay, let's build a regionalized cluster scenario so that we just deploy clusters of servers and the stores hit those. And this will speed us up. Instead of taking us 2 weeks to deploy a single server for a single store, maybe in a week we can deploy a whole region. That was the goal at the time, about January of this year. So in March, April, something like that. Yeah. Of this year. We kicked off our big VMware implementation project that included a brand new infrastructure, brand new network, storage, compute, a whole new VMware stack over at CyrusOne in Louisville. And we did that relatively quickly. We started in probably middle of April. We got done with our initial build in July. We were at the time also standing up vRealize with Doug and Brendan here from Mobius. We spent a lot of time doing this. We had 2 guys who are here now who lived at Mobius for 3 months to get it done. We went from, again, taking a couple of weeks to deploy a single store to being able to deploy a region of stores in 20 minutes. It dramatically changed the conversation with the business. Up until July, retail operations, the executive team, were all very worried, hey, can IT keep up? Is this something we're going to have to, is this going to cause us a problem? We went from us being the bottleneck, which is a common scenario in IT, unfortunately, to being an enabler. Because after we showed them, hey, here's what we can do, we said, all right, we're done. We're ready. You want 2,000 stores tomorrow? We can do that. It's just now okay, you guys got to slow down. The business can't take it this fast. So it's a good position for us to be in. One of the things we learned when we were doing the vRealize implementation was standing up a virtual machine is easy. Anybody can do that, like Doug said. Standing up a single VM, even with everything on it, isn't much harder. What we're using the tool for, and what you guys could all use the tool for, is we stand up an environment at a time. We stand up a front-end application server cluster, including all the control points, all the software, all the security. We stand up a print server in that environment. We hook it to the logging infrastructure. We hook it to the database. And it's all in a template. It's all in a blueprint. So it is literally a one-click operation to stand up an infrastructure to support 100 stores. We've gone light years beyond what we were last year. And it is just, I can't tell you the response, the amount of positive response we've got inside of our own corporation. And again, you know, sharing the story with others, this is the future. This is where we're going. One of the things in that's still a goal for us is developing a methodology and a set of blueprints so we can deploy a whole test environment at a time. That's still a little ways away, but we're working on it. Where I can stand up a database, I can set up all the middle tier, I can set up all the front end, put all the networks in, put all the firewalls in, provision all the users, and all in a single operation. So that when QA comes to us and says, hey, we want to test this new thing. Okay, we define the environment. When they say they want to test, we spin it up, they run their test, they get their data, we destroy it. So I don't have to have 40 VMware servers sitting there waiting for QA to use them. We can go down to 5 or 6 because we will dynamically provision and destroy the environments when they want them. And that's the ultimate goal.
Sure, thanks, Mike. And so we're not done so quick now.
Okay.
Okay. So, you know, I'll tell you a little bit about the products that we're using, the technology that we used at Rent-A-Center. So, you know, vSphere 6, brand new vSphere 6, vRealize Automation, vRealize Operations Management, Log Insight, and we also have a little vCloud Air. And so they have Virtual Private Cloud, or VPC, and DR as a service available. That's all connected to the vRealize Automation as well. So real quick, you know, before you had this technology, what was the process of getting a VM? So the developers or a user came and asked, hey, we need to have a new.
Well, your little animation showed it really well. So it was a multiple request scenario. So we'd have a usually a development team request a VM or a group of VMs. That request would go into the VMware team, who would stand up the container or provision the resources. Then they'd hand it off. They would finish that request, and they would then initiate another request to the OS admins, who would actually install an OS usually. Then they would finish, they would hand it off to the application middleware team, who would install the middleware. Then they'd finish, and they'd hand it back to the development team to actually install the software on the damn server, and then we would hand it off to security to get scanned, to get all the users added, then back to network so we could get firewall rules set up. And this process was painful. I can't emphasize enough how painful it was. And it took weeks sometimes. Sometimes it was faster, depending on how complex it was, but the average server was more than 2 weeks. Again, now it is literally minutes. One of the things, though, that makes this possible is standardization. We're not asking the development team, hey, what OS do you want on this? There's 3 choices to pick from. You get that. Now, there are obviously some places where that won't work, but those are very few and far between. So, and that's another selling point to this is, if you can standardize and convince your business users and your development users, hey, here are the things that we can support quickly. Here are all of our standard templates. If you ask for these things and you stay within the walls here and don't color outside the lines, we can deliver this quickly. We can really do DevOps. We can do all the automation. If every server is a snowflake, it's going to take a lot of time. So that's one of the big takeaways here. The lessons that we've learned is you have to standardize. You cannot do one-offs, or none of this is going to matter.
And part of that standardization wasn't just standardizing on AOS or a application. It was really the way that it used to work, right? Where there was these silos of the technology tiers that we all had to address, and this guy had to go to this guy, and then they come back, and then he had to go to this guy. But really, through this process, getting everybody in a room to form the standard that we could apply to the blueprint, right? So with the networking group to decide on which VLANs and which IP addressing scheme and which subnets, right? And then that's a standard. And then the infrastructure team, which OS and which patches, and get with security on vulnerabilities and which patches had to be applied, and get that all done up front, right? And then it's a whole lot easier. Once everybody agrees that, yeah, that is the OS that we need to use, and it has to have these patches, and this is the network it's going to live on, and it's going to have these applications on it. Now it's real easy. Now their service blueprint for this particular project is really one OS, Red Hat Linux. And depending on which region it's getting deployed into or what its function is, you know, those things are now a push of a button. And they even took it a step further. We were talking about, you know, choice and ability to do open management and things like that, where we're using APIs, where they actually don't go to the portal and do the App Store experience. They handle it like...
Yeah, so when we deploy, we start in Jenkins. So we kick off, so when we said, okay, here's an app server for this new region. It's just got a specific code set. Well, we use Jenkins for our automated deployment, so we kick it off with Jenkins. It goes and starts uses the APIs into vRealize, kicks off the server build, actually drops all the packages on it in sequence, does all the configuration, drops the code on it, you know, adds it to the cluster, and then it's live. It's really slick. One of the big challenges you guys are going to run into if you choose to go down this path with vRealize or another similar tool, the technology is the easy part. The hard part is process. People are used to doing things a certain way. They like doing things a certain way. They're comfortable with it. They are going to have to change. That, in our experience and with everybody I've talked to who's done this, that is by far harder than just standing up the technology. Lots of people can stand up the technology. Driving the business change is where the true leadership is.
Yep, and it's not just pushing a button and off you go and good luck. You know, you still maintain some level of control, or as much control as you want to control, through the use of approval processes and automated approval processes. And how are you guys using those approval processes, and what happens with that?
So today we've only implemented one tier of approval, and only for a couple of different things. Because I said most of it comes through the API process, so it's already pre-approved when it gets there. But we have one level of approval enabled for a certain template right now, and basically it's, you know, a dev server. We stand up a dev server. Here you go. Well, anybody can ask for one. That doesn't mean they're going to get it. So it has to go up to a director level to approve it, and it's just an automated email. And they get the email, and when they say yes or no, assuming they say yes, it's not an email back to the implementer saying, okay, here, go do it. It's a part of the process flow to actually perform the task. So once you fire it off and once it gets approved, it's done. It's not a, hey, he said yes, now go do it. It just works. So that's I guess one of the big takeaways for the vRealize is once you get it stood up and start playing with it, lots of things you don't have to think about anymore. It just works. You don't have to worry about managing communication to your end users or to your business approvers. It's all there. You don't have to worry about, you know, provisioning into the right place, or, hey, you know, I've been provisioning this template or this blueprint into cluster A, now I want to do it in cluster B, so I got to copy all the templates over. None of that matters anymore. It's all integrated. It's all there.
And what about capacity management? I mean, now that you have all this that's out there and users are coming and taking, and how do you manage the capacity, and how are you using vRealize Operations to help with this?
So vRealize Operations helps us with capacity in that we see the big part is trending. You know, anybody can go look and say, hey, I've got, you know, 3 terabytes left in these group of data stores and this much memory and this much compute. What vRealize Operations gives you is say, okay, based on the last 60 days of what you've done here, I can predict when you're going to run out and what you're going to run out of first. Or if you're not going to run out of something, but there's going to be another problem, like you're going to hit a performance bottleneck, say on disk I/O, it'll predict that too. And you'll say, okay, once I do this, even though there's disk left, I'm running 200 VMs on this particular host. I'm going to run a disk I/O when I add VM number 201. And it's really slick. It helps. One of the things it helps us with is, unfortunately for a lot of people, capacity planning is sometimes a very emotional conversation. And I'm worried about, hey, this server here that I'm taking care of is going to fall down, it's going to get hurt, it's going to skin its knee, and I'm going to have to do something with it. It just puts facts out there. It removes the emotion from the conversation, which is a very valuable thing. The other tool that we use, vRealize Business, does the same thing. We're talking about planning for workloads. So we have a group of people in our organization who are very, very fond of, Amazon Web Services. Their default answer for everything is put it out at AWS. It'll be cheaper, it'll be faster, it'll run better. Well, some of that might be true, but when we use vRealize Business, we plug in our Amazon accounts, we plug in our vCloud Air accounts, we know what our local infrastructure costs us. So when we start planning for resource loads for a specific environment, we plug that in and it'll show us, hey, you can run this at AWS, but it'll cost you $1,501 to run it internally. Or it'll cost you $1,400 to run it at vCloud Air. And again, taking the emotion out of the conversation is a very valuable thing. You have facts. You can walk up and show them. And it's not like you're making it up. You're taking either the public information off the website or your actual account data. And all of these things, when you add them all together, it changes the tone of the conversation with the business leaders. You're not asking them to take what you're telling them on faith. You have good, hard data to back up your decisions.
Right. Now let's talk a little bit about that extensibility, right? Mm-hmm. So it is extensible. We can use any cloud provider that's out there, right? And there's a lot of differences between them. We won't get into all that now because that's a whole nother debate.
Yes.
But, that extensibility, the things that it's done for you, like in the past, if users came and requested consumption of some IT service, and you didn't have the storage available, or you didn't have any more space on memory or CPU constrained, that accelerates that, or not accelerates it. It makes that process of being able to provision those IT services longer, and it starts to give the users the perception that IT is just being hard to work with. We're just saying no because we want to say no because we control it and we can say no. And that's not good for anybody. The real problem is we just don't have the internal infrastructure to be able to support what they're asking for. And with the extensibility into vCloud Air, it gives you an opportunity to not say no. When people come, if you don't have it internally, fine, we'll put it out here. And then there's that choice, right? Things like vRealize Business that can help you decide about, we're not going to tell the user no. Now we just have to decide where we're going to put it, what's going to be our best, cheapest, fastest option, and put it out there. Is that how you're kind of using vCloud Air Virtual Private Cloud today?
We've done a little bit of that, and that's honestly the goal we have, is to do it that way. We are planning to, the industry term is cloud bursting. So when we have a workload that we don't have the resources to meet internally, one of the options for deployment out of vRealize Automation is our vCloud Air infrastructure. So we're not there yet, but we're working on the networking part of that so that we can just extend our own network out there. And when we do that, we'll have the ability to, we either don't have the resources to deploy what they're asking for, or for some variety of reasons, we just simply don't want to put it internal. Maybe it's a temporary thing and we're trying something out. We deploy it to vCloud Air, and it is exactly the same as deploying it internal. There is no difference. So it's just you're selecting the destination you're deploying to. When we get to that point, and then we can move workloads back and forth. So we try it out in vCloud Air, and it works. Okay, great. We pull it back in. I don't have to rebuild it, don't have to change the IP address, don't have to change firewall rules. It's just, you're changing, it's like moving it between clusters. That's the paradigm you're using. The capability exists to use other clouds, Rackspace, AWS, things like that with it. It's not quite that clean for obvious reasons, but it does work. So that's the big thing. DR as a service is the other vCloud Air product we're consuming. We made a conscious decision when we were building our POS infrastructure to use VMs with no data in them. So I don't care about an individual VM. It's the whole pets versus cattle conversation.
Yeah, and I will add that when he says their POS infrastructure, that's their point of sale system.
Yes. So our infrastructure is actually very nice now. Thank you, Steve. So when we made that decision, one of the side effects, and we didn't make the decision for this reason, but one of the side effects is DR now becomes very, very simple. Because all I have to care about is making sure that the blueprint exists out of vCloud Air in the DR as a service space. So, the whole DR conversation has evolved over the last couple of years. Traditionally in DR, you bought a very expensive off-site data center or additional data center, and you had a whole bunch of equipment sitting there doing nothing. And it's a very difficult conversation to have with most business leaders. With DR as a service, and there are other offerings besides vCloud Air, but that's what we're here to talk about, you don't have to buy all of that. It's an easy to consume, small footprint that you pay for what you use at the time, and their commitment is they'll scale it up really fast if you need it. So we have 5 VMs running there right now because I have 5 different potential templates that I'll have to instantiate. If I declare a disaster and have to turn up 1,500 VMs in 2 hours, they can do that. And I only have to pay for it in a disaster, in which case nobody's going to care really how much it costs. So again, it's changing the conversation in a good way for us so that we can give the business what they want.
Yep. And the last thing I wanted to touch on real quick was NSX. So you recently went through an NSX deployment, the brand new NSX 6.2.
Yes.
And how are you using that, and how critical was this implementation to the project that you were trying to accomplish?
So we are either very brave or very foolish or both.
They're fearless innovators, I can tell you.
When we finished our vRealize implementation in August, we wrapped up that project late in the week, I think in the middle of August, Wednesday or Thursday, and literally the following Monday started our NSX project. We use that to manage and protect our payment card processing infrastructure. So it is I won't say the single most, but is one of the single most critical pieces of our infrastructure for retail. So we use it for microsegmentation, we use it for layered load balancing, we use it for dynamic routes. It took us 6 weeks?
6 weeks.
6 weeks from zero to standing it up, getting it running, getting real workloads in it, and making the production network team at least reasonably comfortable with integration. It's complex, I will give you that, but it's also very, very powerful, and you don't have to use all of it. So it does for networking what the base VMware product has done for servers, for compute. So it takes all of these complex networking components and puts them in software. So I can do virtual routers, I can do virtual firewalls, I can do virtual load balancers. And it's blending the responsibilities from virtualization and network into a common resource and responsibility pool. It is a little scary for a lot of people, but it is the way of the future. This is software-defined networking, this is software-defined storage, this is software-defined data center, and everybody will get there at some point. But if you don't do it this way, you're going to do it with a hyperconverged or a converged infrastructure. This is just the first step in the journey.
Sure. And thanks, Mike. And through all this and the complexities of getting these deployments completed, the projects that you needed to have done, how was it working with Mobius? I mean, what was your experience there?
So with the project that we, the couple of projects that we did with Mobius, there was a lot of concern, both in IT leadership and in the business side of, hey, can IT actually get this done? We had, historically not made a lot of dates. Projects ran over, budgets ran over. But this set of projects, when we started with Mobius, we embedded ourselves with Mobius. We lived at the Mobius office. We had a couple of guys who are here right now who were at Mobius for 3 months straight. Never came into the office, our office directly. Using the Mobius resources, Doug and Brandon, who's up there somewhere, we got it done. We impressed VMware themselves by the amount of progress we made, how quickly we got it done, how much of a grasp we had on the products. And we could not have done it any other way. And I don't think we could have done it with any other partner.
Thanks, Mike. And no, for those that are thinking, Mike has not been paid for his appearance here today.
Hey.
I bought him lunch once. That's it.
Okay.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it.